Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We interview entrepreneurs who built successful businesses for them to share their story with you. Thank you for watching. Today we have with us, we're very fortunate to have Mr. Octavio Saavedra, the president of EP Logistics. Mr. Saavedra, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Tell me, what is EP Logistics?
Well, EP Logistics is a global freight forwarder, and we offer our customers a wide range of logistics solutions. We offer ocean freight, air freight, customs brokerage, warehousing, over-the-road freight. And what we do, we combine those different services and offer customized solutions to our clients.
What kind of customers do you have?
Our main customers, we focus on the maquiladora industry, being here in the border. EP Logistics has offices not only in the U.S., but we also have offices throughout Mexico. We try to strategically place our locations close to where the main industrial parks are, so we can put the product, the raw materials to our maquiladoras, to our customers, close to their sites.
Why did you name your company EP Logistics?
Well, there's a misconception. EP Logistics, a lot of people call it El Paso Logistics, which is fine because I consider myself here from El Paso. But it really stands for experts and professionals in logistics, and it goes well with EP Logistics. And we're headquartered here in El Paso, and proud to be one of the few global freight forwarders from El Paso. And
so you're an expert professional in logistics.
Yes, we're experts and professionals in logistics. That's right.
Ms. Saavedra, where'd you grow up?
I'm originally from Laredo, Texas. I was born in Laredo, Texas. First part of my years, my younger years in elementary school, I lived in Nuevo Laredo. So my first years in elementary was in Nuevo Laredo. My parents were business owners. They owned novelty stores in the Laredo, Texas side. We crossed every day until finally my dad decided to move the family to the U.S. So I went from finishing 6th grade and moved on to Laredo, Texas, and I had to put me back a year so I can learn the English language, because I didn't know a word in English, so I had to learn it. It was kind of an interesting story, because what would happen in school is that everything that I received, I was a very social kid, but since I didn't speak the language, I was kind of secluded in the back or isolated, and I had to translate all my homework from Spanish to English or English to Spanish so I could understand it. But it took a year and a half to really catch on, and at that age, there's no fear, and so picked it up rather quickly, and so again, I grew up in Laredo, went to high school there, and then I went off to college in Texas State University. Used to be the Southwest Texas State University.
So you went to college in San Marcos?
In San Marcos, Texas.
And your field of study there?
My field of study was finance with a minor in accounting.
So, and you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have a sister. Her name is Monica Saavedra, and she lives in Austin, and she's the director for nonprofit organization down there in Austin, and she's doing very well for herself. I'm very proud of her, and occasionally I go out there and visit. Austin's a great city to visit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, tell me about your parents. Your father. They had a business.
Yeah, they had a business. Well, first my dad worked for one of the few sporting goods stores in downtown Laredo, and he was a manager there, and then he decided to start his own business. So we had a novelty store, and depended on the market from the people that would come from Mexico, Monterrey and Mexico City, that would come to Nuevo Laredo to buy U.S. goods and go back. So actually started working there at a very early age. So I was involved in business decisions even selling. I think my dad was one of the best salesmen I ever known. And I really learned some of the business fundamentals there. My mother used to do the accounting. My dad was the sales and purchasing. He was in charge of buying all the goods that we would sell, and my mom carried the books.
So your family business, and at that time you still lived in Nuevo Laredo?
No, by that time we were already in Laredo, Texas, and that was in the years between, I would say, 79 through about 89 or something like that. Yeah.
So you grew up in a business?
I grew up in a business.
Selling and
so on, and it was a tough business. The retail business downtown Laredo was, you had your moments of glory, and then there was when the peso devaluation would hit. Those were some really difficult times. What was it like? Well, I remember one specific day where it was the day before the devaluation. Can't remember exactly what the peso, I think it was 12 to 1, the peso. And I remember this flock of people, massive amount of people from Mexico coming in. We had our best day of sales. Obviously, the news didn't travel as fast as they do today. So Mexico kept a secret about their peso being devaluated. So these people knew somehow, and they came and they bought everything in sight. I mean, we had finished goods on the shelves that, I mean, had dust, had not moved for over a year. These people bought everything. Of course, everything they bought was half price practically. And I remember we had a stack of cash that at the end of the day we were celebrating what a great sale it was. But in the news that night, they finally let the news out that the peso had been devaluated. So that stack became half or maybe even lower than that. So it was some tough times to recover from that, because with that we had to convert to dollars and pay our suppliers, right? And that was tough times. At that point, I saw some of these things, and I said that I never wanted to be in that type of business, in the retail business. I wanted something more consistent that dealt with corporations rather than.
But you knew you wanted business as a kid.
Yeah, I did. It was already in my blood, and especially in the freight forwarding business. Being from Laredo, everybody there is either a freight forwarder, a warehouse, transportation company. My mother worked for a freight forwarder. My grandfather, he was a Mexican customs official. Because from my mother's side, my grandfather, he used to work for Mexican customs in Veracruz, and then he got relocated from Veracruz to the port of Nuevo Laredo, and that's how my mother's side of the family came to Nuevo Laredo, where my mom met my dad, and that's.
What was your mother like? She was an accountant and hard worker, and what did you learn from your mom?
She's definitely a go-getter. I mean, she gets things done, and she doesn't forget anything. You know, when she gives you something to do, or has a vision of what she wants you to do, she will follow up, and then that's a great art of delegation in our business. You know, you turn something over. A lot of times you have good managers that they just do it, but then you have some that require some follow-up. And you know, the art of delegation is making sure you follow up.
That's right. Wow, fantastic. Good lesson. You learned that early.
Good learn. Yes, I learned a lot of things from the business from my parents, and the good side and also the bad side. You know, the things not to do.
Your father, what was he like?
Like I said, he was really very social, great salesman, and he really could. he could really sell and work pricing with the suppliers. So he was like, he would deal the purchasing side and the sales part of it. And so both of them complemented each other. My mother did the admin books, and my dad did the buying and the selling. So the business was small, so you didn't need a lot of the other things that you need nowadays.
But it supported the family.
Yes, absolutely. It supported the family, helped me through college.
And you knew you wanted to go to college all along?
Well, yes, I know I wanted to get an education. Back in those days, they really didn't push, what college to go to and so on. It's just how I decided to go to college is because the rest of my friends were going to Texas State, and we all signed the applications in we were having a get-together in my house, and we all filled out the application, and we all went to, like a group of 5 of us went to the same school. No rhyme or reason, but obviously today, things are much more different. Parents are more involved with the kids as to, really focus as to, what's your career, what do you like, and make sure you're happy with what you're gonna do. And
what kind of a kid were you? Were you a pingo?
Yeah, I would say so. I think I was more of the street smart type of kid than the really hit the books. But not until I got to college, where my first semester in college, I thought I could, I thought I could cruise like in high school. And boy, was that a rude awakening in my first semester. Got my first grades, and then at that point, I said, okay, am I gonna work for my dad, or am I gonna get an education and do something on my own? And that was so at that point, I made a commitment to myself to really study hard, and if my grades improve, I was gonna continue the college career, and they did. Okay. And so I continued on.
That's great. And your parents, are they still alive?
Yeah, both of my parents.
And they live in Laredo? Or?
Yes, they both live, well, actually my dad lives in Nuevo Laredo, my mom lives in Laredo. They're now separated, but they both live in Laredo. My mother comes here more often than my dad, but they make it out here.
So after college, then, you look for a job, or what do you do?
Well, going through the finance classes, because I really loved the stock market. I wanted one day to work in the stock market, right, in Wall Street. So right out of college, I got a job with a brokerage firm, and so it wasn't what it was like in the movies. You get in there, you get a bunch of materials that you need a lot certifications and so on. And I had loans to pay for, student loans that, I got a job, I got this loan, so this burden on my back. And because although my parents helped me some, it wasn't enough. My parents' business didn't, because of the peso devaluation, didn't do as well as they thought it was going to do. So I had to kind of find funding on my own after a while. And so again, there were some difficult times there, but so when I graduated, I went to work for this brokerage firm. And first thing they asked me was, Octavio, why don't you put a list of all the wealthy people you know? That was a little uncomfortable to begin with. And so I started calling them, and probably out of the group, I was the only one that actually sold something. And after everything was done, I got deductions for training materials and this and that. I was really disappointed. So I had, during my college years, I was working for a customs broker in Laredo, and they would give me time to go work there for Christmas break, summer break, and so on. So they always held a job for me. So when I quit this brokerage job, they had an opening in that company for a manager trainee in Brownsville, Texas. and I took it. And I went from Austin, well, by the way, when I graduated from San Marcos, I lived in Austin, and I went from Austin to Brownsville. Quite a change. I had been to Brownsville, but just to the South Padre Island area, which is the resort. However, there in Brownsville, that's why I started my career in the logistics business. For a small company, very similar to the Rudy Miles, called Corrigan Dispatch down there. And I worked there for about 6 years. I got in there, I also studied for my custom brokerage exam, where I got it in 1992 is when I got my brokerage exam.
So what year did you graduate from college?
89.
Okay. And so you worked for this company, and you were learning about the business. You knew the business a little bit, but were you learning about the business as well as you were working? And
yeah, well, I had some experience already. When I worked in Laredo, first they had me in the filming room, in the microfilming room, back when you used to microfilm,
right.
and and shredding and doing like filing, admin stuff, and then they got promoted to being what they call their a dispatcher, where you actually take the entry documents down to the bridge, match it up with the truck that's coming across the border, match them up, and you present it to customs. And then customs will come out and ask, okay, you know, entry 1, 2, 3, 4, trailer 4, 5, 6, and we have to match them up. We'll call the driver, where's the trailer? Customs official will come out, look at the trailer, open up the back, and just check a couple of the items that were there, and if everything checked out, he closed the doors, signed off the paperwork, and that was the clearance for it, and that's what I used to do back then. So I had some experience with the brokerage. So when I went as a manager trainee, I knew what went on at the import lot. And
so you had a good background. Yeah. So meanwhile, as you're working, you stayed in Brownsville?
Yeah. I was there about 1.5 years. And then from the same company, they moved me to McAllen, Texas. So I worked another 1.5 years. And that same company was struggling with the management and the leadership for their branch in El Paso. And they had a really tough time growing this branch here in El Paso. So they sent me kind of on a fact-finding mission to see how I can help. And I saw a huge opportunity. You know, being from Brownsville and McAllen, smaller towns, and then you come to El Paso, which has twice the amount of maquiladoras, and say, I can't, I told my boss at the time, I can't explain why we haven't grown, because there's so much opportunity out there. We're just not actively going after new customers. So shortly thereafter, guess what? I get the job in El Paso and start out small, and we start growing it. And
so you grew it from very little to?
Well, you know, yeah, it was it was just an office, had no warehouse, so we weren't doing any work. So I moved it to another facility where it had the opportunity to do not only brokerage but warehousing. So it grew. A couple of years later, a big global Fortune 500 company came in, a global freight forwarder, and hired me from that company. And that was back in 96, 97. And that company, I was the very first employee they hired in El Paso. They had just gotten a big account, a big automotive account. And so first employee, and I had to hire the team, start from zero. I remember sitting in my kitchen table with the new hires and assigning, delegating tasks. Okay, you're gonna go get the permit, you're gonna go do this, because our offices weren't finished. So it took a little while to grow it, and really that is where I learned a lot in that company, because I used to run my own P&L there.
So you grew that company?
Yes.
Like if it was your own business.
Like yeah, I operated that company like it was my own business, but with that being my money, without having all of my money in
you grew their business without, with somebody else's money.
Somebody else's money.
But you learned.
I learned the fundamentals, although I have some background with where I came from, but really the strategy of growing business, maintaining business, and looking at the sales part of it. I really learned it at this global.
So how long did you work for them?
I worked for them 8 years.
And so you started with no sales, and you ended up in 8 years. How big did you grow that?
Well, we did start with an anchor account because they had they came to El Paso because they had landed a big automotive account. So we had a little bit of a base to start from, but that wasn't going to keep us going for much longer, you know. So we started with a small base. We were 4 employees to begin with, and after 8 years, we had approximately 200,000 square feet of warehousing and close to 80 employees.
Wow.
So
from 4 to 80 employees.
Yes.
Wow,
that's
that
growth. 8-year span that we had.
So you know what it is to grow a business.
Absolutely, but I'm still learning every day. Yeah.
So in the process now, when do you get married?
Oh yeah, when I first moved to El Paso, which was in '95, '96 time frame, I met my wife. We had some mutual friends, but a mutual friend of ours introduced us at the gym. So it was kind of like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I was there and introduced us, and after that was the coffee after, and from there was history. Yeah.
And your wife, where is she from?
My wife was born in California, Hawthorne, California, but she grew up here in El Paso. Her parents are from Argentinian descent. Her father used to run a shelter operation in Juarez, and that's what brought him and the family here. He went from Cleveland to, well, he first migrated from Buenos Aires to New York, New Jersey area, and then he hopped around until he found his niche, and his niche was a shelter operation in Juarez.
And you have children?
Yes, I do. I have 3 kids. Julia is 14 years old. In fact, she turns 14 here in March 13th, in a couple of weeks during spring break. And Paola is 12 years old, middle child, and then Sebastian, he's 10 years old.
Is your boy a lot like you or any of your daughters?
I think the boy is more like me. You know, he's moving, 1,000 miles an hour, can't really sit still for a while, and loves sports like his dad. He's now playing baseball. He's all excited about playing baseball. He wants to play football, but we're holding him back.
Did you play sports?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I played football and track.
Wow.
Yeah, while I was in high school.
You still run?
No, I don't run, but I picked up a sport called CrossFit.
Okay.
And I do that every morning.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
Your wife, what's her name?
My wife's name's Maria.
Okay.
Maria Saavedra. And we've been married 17 years.
17 years, fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. So you work for this company now for 8 years, and what happened at that point?
Well, I lost my job.
Okay.
Okay. I gave a lot to this company. The company gave a lot to me. And at that point, when I lost my job, I thought, wow, what am I going to do? Because it was really bad timing. But there is really not who picks the time, right? Lost my job. I had a 6-month-old. I just moved into a new house. Had a bunch of plans going forward, and the carpet gets pulled underneath me. And so I said, well, what do I do now? What I did say, committed to myself, is this: I'm not gonna be in the same position ever again. So the entrepreneurship inside of me started to kick in, right? I was very committed to that company, so I had no plans. I had no plan of preparing something on the side or anything like that. So, but not until that happened, it triggered something inside me to say, hey, you can do it, and you can do it better.
So without realizing it, all of a sudden you realize you have been preparing.
Yes, yeah. They really, I learned a lot in that company. They're a well-structured company. They're doing fantastic. And so, because they have a good model. And my idea is to learn from that model and perfect that model to meet the needs of a smaller company that is more personalized in their services, not so focused on just the bottom line. And that is my...
So you decided you were going to go on your own and start your own business.
At that point, I decided that I was going to begin building my own business, yes.
What year was that?
That was in 2005.
So all of a sudden now you've got to start a business. Mm-hmm. And so I want to ask you also about what needs you saw, but how did your family take you starting a business after all these years of a paycheck?
You know, I had the full support of my wife. Obviously, we had to redo our budget, take a step back, you know. She went back to work after she had been at home with the kids and so on to support this, because obviously the income wasn't the same. So the support from my family was key to my success too. So I had support, you know, from my wife, support from my in-laws, and from my parents as well. Mostly it was, you know, moral support, and that's what's the most important, is the type where you say, hey, you can do this. If you did it for these guys, you can do it for yourself.
And you had the drive.
And I had the drive. I had the motivation, right? The know-how, and but it wasn't easy.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Mr. Saavedra, I really appreciate your sharing as you grew into developing the business. And we've come to the end of segment 1.
Okay.
And we want to find out more in segment 2. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for segment 2.